the City of Tacoma, Pierce Transit, and Tacoma Pierce County Chamber. We want to thank our sponsors because we could not do this without their support. Our sponsors for this event are UWT, there's James around here, and Pierce Transit. And I know we have some Pierce Transit staff here as well. And we also have our series sponsors, and that's HNTB, Geoengineers, AHBL, KPG, and VIA. Is anyone here from those organizations? Oh, hi, Bruce. Thank you for coming.
All right.
Thanks for coming, Bruce. And most all of our programs are free, and they are definitely not free to put on. So we have a donation box in the back of the room, and we would greatly appreciate any donation you could give towards this event and our programs at Downtown On The Go. And every year we have a Friday Forum series. This year it is on the last Friday of the month, January through April. And each year we have one book club event and reading. And we're very excited to have read Making Transit Fun and to have the author in here, Darrin Nordahl. We just had a training this morning with him over at Pierce Transit with our staff, with Pierce Transit and Sound Transit staff, and it was great. It was helped us think out of the box and come up with new fun ideas for transit. And I think the book was great, and I'm really excited to talk about that now. And it's not just, I know in the title it says Making Transit Fun, but it really does touch on biking and walking as well. So please help me welcome Darrin Nordahl.
Thank you, Megan. Thank you, thank you. So I want to give a little bit of background information on what I do, because transit is a very complex subject. Of course, there's lots of politics involved and the bureaucracy that's associated with the politics. Funding is always an issue, right? But it's also a much more complex problem than that, I have discovered. It is a cultural issue in my mind. And what we're trying to do, transit advocates like me, is trying to get the vast majority of Americans who drive, who might even have negative opinions of transit, to change their attitudes and embrace transit, to eschew the automobile and love the bus. And it's very, very difficult. I understand that. I am an urban designer, but I work with civil engineers and transportation planners. I work with the Department of Public Works all the time with their streets, police, fire, all the agencies that you typically interact with when there's vehicles on the street. But what I discovered as an urban designer, I do public space design. I'll design parks, I'll design city squares, downtown plazas, streetscapes. What I learned is that I can't just go to some open space in the city and plant turf and trees and expect everyone to flock to my new park. There has to be more going on than that. Just like I can't provide a sidewalk on a street and expect people to walk. I can't leave out bicycles at the corner and bike racks and expect people to ride. Nor can I supply the community with 50 more buses and expect the motoring public to jump out of their cars and hop onto the bus. There has to be something else. People have to want to take transit, to ride the bike, to walk. And we have to reward them with a pleasant, enjoyable experience. So I am a big transit advocate. But like most Americans, I love cars. I really, really love automobiles. I love their shapes. I love their colors. I think they're cute and they're lovable and they're sexy, and it's more than just a functional way to get from point A to point B. Cars ply our emotions, and the automobile manufacturers recognize this. They understand that emotion, something like joy and fun, is crucial in getting a customer to choose one product or service over another. That's why car manufacturers like Infiniti employ this guy right here. Mr. Kato is a master driver. He is recognized by the Ministry of Japan for his extraordinary skill. He can measure things about cars and driving that computers cannot, namely giddiness and thrill. And it's that difference that Infiniti says from being physically transported and emotionally moved. But what I found in our transit circulators is that those emotional qualities, joy, giddiness, and thrill, were absent. So I wondered if we could turn the tables on the automobile manufacturers and say, can we get more people to choose transit over the automobile if it too can offer them an enjoyable experience? So my hypothesis, if you will, began with a very popular initiative a few years ago called the Fun Theory. And maybe some of you guys have seen this, very popular on YouTube. And the Fun Theory asks a simple question. Can we change people's behavior for the better simply by making an unpopular task fun to do? So in a situation like this, can we get more people to choose the stairs over the escalator by making it fun to do? They're going to the gym. They're going to be on the Stairmaster for 60 minutes, but they can't take the stairs to the gym. So what the Fun Theory did, and something similar, was they found a transit platform in Stockholm next to an escalator, and they outfitted the stair treads with pressure-sensitive pads to mimic piano notes and piano keys. The idea, very ingenious, is that each step played a very distinct piano note. And you can compose your own tunes simply by the stairs you took and the frequency of the stairs you took. And maybe you had to walk backwards. But as you could see, it was very, very popular for the young and the old alike, people across all ages. And what they found is, here's the before, here's the after, a 66% increase in stair use. And so the Fun Theory did some other social experiments. And they found that by making unpopular tasks fun, they could actually get people to recycle more. They can get people to litter less. They got motorists to obey the speed limit with the speed lottery camera. If you obeyed the speed limit, you won cash money sometimes. That money came from the citations issued to the speeders. Ingenious. But what was surprising to me was that these initiatives came from a very large automobile manufacturer, Volkswagen. But then the more I thought about it, the more I realized it shouldn't be so much of a surprise, because car makers know what moves us. They know how to tug our heartstrings and to loosen our purse strings. So back to my hypothesis. Again, can we beat automobile manufacturers at their own game? And can we make more people choose transit over the automobile if it can offer them an enjoyable experience? But right now, we know that our typical transit circulators are anything but fun. They are banal at best and something wholly forgettable at worst. And it's a formidable challenge to change the stigma and the attitude of public transit in America. Automobile manufacturers play dirty. They are not going to merely step aside and let Americans choose more fun, alternative ways to get around. They're going to do what they can to make every mode of transport besides the automobile an inferior choice. Look at this poor chap. He has to hide his face in shame because he has to ride a bike. He can't drive. But sometimes the automobile manufacturers don't even need to do these nasty ads. They actually just let transit officials make poor decisions, like wrap their buses and promote more new cars to the motoring public. And then we have here, no one in their right mind would ever want to get on a bus where sexual assault happens here. These are some unfortunate, very, very poor marketing decisions made from transit officials. What we need to do, again, is beat car makers at their own game. We need better marketing. We need messages and images that paint positive pictures of transit and the bus. But we need more than that, because the demand for enjoyable experiences is already there. Big slides are appearing in transit stations in Berlin. Swings are appearing at bus stops in London and in Montreal. These particular swings, by the way, play musical notes, like those pianos. The higher you swing, the different the note. You can compose your own tunes based on how you swing. Swings are appearing actually on board trains in San Francisco. And bus stops designed to look like giant inhabitable fruit are appearing in a community in Japan. And these are all independent, very whimsical ideas. But what they do is they point to the fun potential of transportation, and they give these communities, at least these places in these communities, identity and character. It makes taking something as banal as riding the bus into something that might actually elicit joy and bring a smile to your face. The problem is, unfortunately, that riding the bus is, again, the most banal of choices. Everywhere I go, the buses and the experience is always the same. I'd like to play a little game right now where I call Where Are We? And just looking at the bus, you can look at the surrounding environment, but I want you to look at the transit circulators, these coaches, and tell me if you know where we are in the United States. So let's start with this one. Go ahead and shout them out. Chicago? That's Chicago. Obvious, right? No. Guess again. No, not San Francisco. I'm from San Francisco. No way. We would never do that. New York City, huh? Biggest city in America, and that is their distinctive iconographic bus in New York City, which looks exactly like the one in Chicago, which looks exactly like the one in Lexington, which looks exactly like the one in Davenport, Iowa, obviously. But it doesn't have to be this way. Transit vehicles can have verve and panache and provide distinction and identity. Where are we now? Obviously. How about here? New Orleans, the St. Charles streetcar. A little bit tougher. Where are we now? Portland. Close though. It's like, I know it. Boom, San Diego. What about this one?
Quad cities.
Who said Quad Cities? Quad Cities.
Read the book.
Oh. Cheater. So when I was a city designer for the town of Davenport, Iowa, this was a constant challenge, getting people to ride the bus. We just didn't want more transit-dependent people to ride the bus. We wanted the choice customer, the person who had the disposable income, who can afford to choose between the different modes of transit. And what we realized is that this bus here was not doing us any favors. And what we did was we commissioned buses that had style, that had flair, that had panache, that caught people's attention and reminded them of their transit choices wherever they were on the street, but that also beckoned them to check it out. This is a very, very different bus design. If you step on a typical city bus, this is what you see. But if you step on the new Quad City buses, this is what you see. And it's amazing how just a couple of design considerations can totally change the way we feel riding the bus. Natural light coming in, decreasing visual clutter, extending views beyond. This bus attracts the choice customer. The other bus only attracts the transit dependent. Where are we now? This is probably the best success story for the American bus. College town, big mountains. Boulder. Boulder like most cities in America, operated buses as a social service. And then in the 1990s, former Mayor Will Torr wanted to attract a different rider. They couldn't even attract students, and that is very rare that you can be in a college community and still not attract students. So he and his task force, his transit agency, proposed a very simple question to the public. What would it take for you guys not to ride transit, but want to ride transit? Very simple. Like the mayor said, this wasn't rocket science, though. This was a basic question that any private enterprise would ask its customers. And the people responded. Not the transit dependent, everybody in the community. We're bolder, we're unique, we're hip, we're cool. The circulators, the coaches, have to reflect that culture. We want buses with distinction, with identity, with flair. What they did was they hired a team of graphic designers, and they worked with the community, and in an ingenious approach, they did